You think the war begins when enemies appear. You are wrong. The war begins the moment your conviction falters. It begins in the quiet, in the hour when no one is watching, when your voice trembles and you lie to yourself. Softly, silently, but enough to break the line. You disobey your own command, and in that instant, you have already lost. No army has marched, no sword has clashed, but the ground beneath you has shifted, and your foundation has cracked. A commander must first conquer his own hesitations. A soldier must first obey his own direction. And a man, if he is to endure the storms of time, must stand still within himself like a mountain unmoved by wind. Discipline is not a leash, it is a shield. Without it, even strength becomes a burden. Even talent becomes a liability. I have seen men of great brilliance collapse because they confused freedom with impulse. They believed that disobeying themselves was liberty, not defeat. But self-betrayal is the most cunning assassin. It strikes without warning. It disguises itself as comfort, as urgency, as the whisper of, "just this once." It asks for nothing loud, nothing violent. Only a small deviation, a delay, a compromise, and that is enough. Because the moment you step away from your own law, you teach the enemy how to defeat you by watching you abandon yourself. What good is a strategy if you do not follow it? What use is foresight if your actions contradict your own command? To rule others is ambition. To rule yourself is command. I speak not to the loud, not to the frantic, not to the performer. I speak to the one who wishes to win, quietly, enduringly, without spectacle. To the one who knows that the sharpest victories are forged in silence. You prepare for battle long before the battlefield arrives. You win the day in the weeks before it. You sharpen your judgment in times of peace, so that in chaos you do not panic. You execute. But how many wake each morning without intention? How many stumble into the day as if time is endless, as if energy is eternal, as if the enemy is sleeping? Time is not your servant. It is your battlefield. Every hour you do not control is a position surrendered. Every habit you leave untrained becomes an open flank. Those who obey themselves rarely need to obey others. Those who command themselves become unshakable. This is why I warn you. The war does not begin when the noise begins. The war begins when the stillness tests you, when your choices are invisible, when no one sees your laziness, no one sees your excuse, no one sees your neglect except you. And you know, that is enough. You do not need punishment. You do not need applause. You only need the quiet discipline of a mind that does not betray itself. All war is deception, but the deadliest deception is internal. It is when you fool yourself into thinking your delay is harmless, your inaction is trivial, your promise to begin tomorrow still carries weight. It does not. Tomorrow is a myth. Only obedience to the present brings victory. Look around you. The undisciplined are everywhere, loud, distracted, desperate for affirmation, unmoored from inner command. They are always reacting, always moved by external noise, always swayed by moods and winds and emotions. And they lose. They lose not because they are weak, but because they are unfocused. They lose because their allegiance lies in too many places, in applause, in comparison, in the approval of others. Their loyalty is not to their own mind. Their banner does not fly from within. But you, if you are to win, must move differently. You must be still when others panic, sharp when others soften, relentless when others grow sentimental, and obedient to yourself, especially when the world invites you to stray. There will always be reasons to abandon your discipline. The world is skilled at seduction. It will offer shortcuts. It will mock your consistency. It will reward the loud. It will tempt you with speed and comfort and popularity. But you are not here to be entertained. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to win applause. You are here to win. And you cannot win if you walk away from your own path. This is why the greatest danger is not out there. It is not the enemy. It is not the uncertainty of the world. It is the moment you stop listening to your own command. The moment you excuse what you once forbade. The moment you violate your own law and then justify it. The most dangerous man is not the one who disobeys others. It is the one who disobeys himself. Because once you do that, there is nothing left to protect. No strategy can compensate for a commander who has lost control of his own ranks. No wisdom can save the man who abandons his post in the mind. You may recover ground. You may regain time. But the cost of self-betrayal is far greater than any external loss, because it tells the enemy that you can be broken from within. And the enemy will always look for that opening again. So guard yourself, not just from lies, but from your own moments of softness. Guard your habits. Guard your mornings. Guard your words. Because these are not small things. They are the front lines of your war. To the world, they are invisible. But to a strategist, they are everything. And you must be a strategist. You must treat your life as terrain, with threats, with shadows, with variables you cannot always control. And still, you must move with command. There is no victory without self-allegiance. There is no greatness without self-governance. All glory begins with discipline. And you lost the war the moment you disobeyed yourself. You speak of goals as if they matter more than the path. But it is not ambition that wins wars. It is execution. Quiet, repetitive, brutal execution of the plan you committed to when your mind was still clear. Do not trust the version of yourself that makes decisions in weakness. Trust only the one forged in clarity. The one that speaks when the noise is gone and the distractions have died down. That voice, the voice of still judgment, is your commander. Disobey him, and everything collapses. Most people think failure happens in defeat, but defeat is only a symptom. The real failure happens far earlier, in the invisible hour, in the moment when no one is watching. When discipline is replaced with indulgence. That is when the gates fall. If you look at your life as a campaign, you will realize the importance of the ordinary. A missed hour is not just time lost, it is ground lost. A missed step is not just a stumble, it is a crack in the line. The war is not won in dramatic acts, it is won in the meticulous, daily, relentless repetition of what must be done. And repetition is obedience. If you are always looking for novelty, for inspiration, for motivation, you are not a commander. You are a tourist. The strategist wakes and executes the same maneuver not because it is glamorous, but because it works. He repeats the same discipline not because it excites him, but because it secures the perimeter. Those who understand this walk in quiet victory. Those who reject it lose before the battle begins. You may decorate your life with words. You may tell others your goals. You may build the illusion of movement. But if your actions do not obey your own command, you are not progressing. You are performing. And performance is fragile. It crumbles under pressure because it was never built on conviction. Only command survives fire. You must understand the nature of silence. It is not absence. It is power. When you train in silence, when you act in silence, when you obey in silence, you build something no one can see and no one can shake. The loud may win crowds, but the silent win wars. And you must ask yourself, what war are you fighting? Because many fight for the wrong things. They chase distraction. They chase noise. They chase visibility. They fight for the appearance of strength, not its essence. And so they burn quickly. They fade under pressure. Their fire is too bright, too soon, and it dies before the long night. But the disciplined burn slowly, strategically, with endurance, with direction. To endure, you must detach from desire. Not because desire is evil, but because it cannot be trusted. It shifts. It deceives. It demands everything now. And war does not reward those who rush. It rewards those who wait and strike with precision. You are not here to feel better. You are here to get better. And that means pain. That means stillness. That means refusal. That means discipline when you least want it. And loyalty to your path when it feels pointless. There will be days when the war feels like silence, when your steps seem to lead nowhere, when your efforts go unseen, your strategy unrewarded. That is not failure. That is the test, and most abandon themselves here. They do not fall to the enemy. They fall to their own discouragement. They abandon their system. They disobey their structure, and they lose, quietly, but entirely. You do not need applause to stay the course. You need resolve, and resolve is not loud. It is the still, cold decision to move forward without reassurance. The world does not give medals to those who build in silence, but war rewards them. Time rewards them. Reality bends to the one who stays the course when all light is gone. And so I tell you again, the moment you disobeyed yourself, you surrendered your greatest advantage. Because the world is full of opponents, but the greatest one is you. You will be tempted to compromise, not once, but constantly. The compromise will not be large. It will be subtle, a skipped discipline, a delayed action, a shift in standards. And with each compromise, you weaken the walls that protect you. You think the enemy will break you with force, but he waits for you to soften your own guard, to lower your own sword, to doubt your own plan. And if he sees you hesitate, even once, he knows the gate is open. You may close it later, you may return to your post, but he has seen inside now, and that changes everything. So never let the enemy see you disobey yourself. This is the meaning of command, not in dominating others, but in unwavering loyalty to your own orders. You do not need to be loud. You do not need to announce, but you must be exact. You must be cold with your own excuses. You must correct yourself without ceremony. Every time you do that, you gain ground. Every time you execute what you promised yourself, you fortify the fortress. And every time you let the moment pass, every time you look the other way, a piece of you disappears. Eventually, you will either be a commander of yourself or a casualty of your own indifference. I have watched the strongest men fall to inconsistency. I have watched the most brilliant fail from self-neglect. I have watched armies fall not from weakness, but from disorder, from 1,000 small disobediences that added up to collapse. So stop looking outward. Stop waiting for permission, for timing, for perfect circumstances. You are the commander. Your life is the campaign. Your mind is the map. And your actions are the only soldiers that matter. If they do not obey your command, then what are you but a flag with no army? You want victory? Then act like a strategist. And a strategist never violates his own plan. If the plan must change, then change it with clarity. Not emotion, not impulse, not fatigue. But never ever abandon it out of weakness. There is no shame in retreat, if it is strategic. There is shame in surrender, if it is internal. You may fail and still win, if you remained obedient to your principles. But if you betray yourself, even a victory will feel hollow. This is the truth no one tells you. The real war is internal. The real battlefield is invisible. The real loss happens the moment your own orders no longer hold weight. And in that moment, no matter your status, your wealth, your power, you have already lost. There is a myth that strength is loud, that power must be seen, that the victorious rise with spectacle. But war is not theater. It is precision. It is the art of knowing exactly when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain still. The undisciplined crave recognition. The disciplined require only results. Your mind is a fortress or a ruin. The bricks are your habits. The gates are your standards. Every decision either secures the wall or weakens it. No act is neutral. Every action has weight. Every word has consequence. Every delay, every indulgence, every compromise is a message to the enemy. I am not prepared. Do you understand the power of this truth? Because most do not. Most drift. They live in reaction. They allow mood to govern motion. They obey desire rather than command. But desire is a wind. It changes without warning. It cannot be followed. Only principle endures, and principle demands obedience, first to your own command. You cannot lead others until you lead yourself. You cannot shape outcomes if you cannot shape your mornings. You cannot withstand conflict if you collapse under your own resistance. The army within you must be trained before you face anything outside. So rise early, move with structure, speak with clarity. Train your thoughts like soldiers, precise, orderly, sharp. Let no chaos live within you. Let no hesitation take root. If doubt arrives, meet it with stillness. If fear whispers, face it with presence. Your enemy is not louder than your discipline, unless you allow it. Time is not endless. You will not be given infinite chances. Each day you spend out of formation is a position surrendered. The world may not notice, but the outcome will. And the enemy always does. He watches when you scroll instead of study, when you rest instead of rehearse, when you promise but do not execute. He waits, not for your failure, but for your fracture, for the small crack that becomes a breach. But you can make that crack invisible. You can close the gap, not through willpower, but through structure, through design, through the daily return to order regardless of feeling. Because that is what strategy demands. Consistency over passion, repetition over excitement, precision over comfort. Victory belongs to those who move without needing to be moved, who do what must be done regardless of weather, applause, or reward. I do not tell you this to inspire you. Inspiration fades. I tell you this to forge you, because the world does not care for your dreams. It only responds to your actions. And if your actions do not align with your inner command, then you are not in control. You are not leading. You are leaking time, energy, clarity, power. It is not enough to want. It is not enough to know. It is only enough to do. And that doing must be exact. Each day is a campaign. Not every battle will be won, but every battle must be faced. Skipping the war does not save you from it. It only ensures you lose without fighting. And yet, you fight yourself. You delay what you know must begin. You avoid what you fear must be confronted. You distract yourself with noise and call it motion. That is the costliest betrayal. Not what you do to others, but what you allow yourself to do to your own standard. Because in that moment, you fracture the one alliance that matters, the one between your mind and your action. If your word is not law to yourself, it cannot lead anyone. Speak less, execute more, feel less, observe more, hope less, prepare more. This is not coldness, it is clarity. A mind ruled by clarity is unshakable. A life ruled by structure is unstoppable. An army of one, loyal to its own mission, is more powerful than a legion moved by doubt. And this is the great misunderstanding, that you need more. You do not. You need less, fewer distractions, fewer exceptions, fewer escapes. You need a smaller circle of action, repeated with relentless exactness. The sword that sharpens itself does not require applause. The fortress that disciplines itself does not fear the storm. The man who obeys himself does not fall when the world disobeys him. You think of betrayal as an act against others, but the deeper betrayal is internal. You lie to yourself when you say you'll start tomorrow. You betray yourself when you break the system you built in clarity. You sabotage your future when you negotiate with excuses. But the obedient man, he sees all this and he refuses. Not because he is superhuman, but because he understands the price of inconsistency, and he refuses to pay it. He rises because he said he would. He acts because the plan demands it. He repeats because success is built on monotony, and he wins, not in fire, but in frost, not in hype, but in heatless repetition, not in spectacle, but in silence. That is why his victory lasts. So understand, you do not need more force. You need fewer fractures. You do not need motivation. You need obedience to the voice inside you that once was clear and must be clear again. Return to that voice. Make it the only command that matters. Drown out the noise. Starve the impulse. Ignore the applause. And obey. Because in that obedience, you find something stronger than energy. You find precision. You find order. You find control. And with control, you can win anything. But without it, even with strength, even with speed, even with opportunity, you will lose. Because the one who disobeys himself gives the enemy his coordinates. He shows his weakness. He removes his armor. He lights a fire inside the fortress. And no strategy survives fire from within. So build the fortress again, not outside, within. You lost the war the moment you disobeyed yourself, but you win it the moment you obey, without argument, without feeling, without pause. Not once, but always, because war is not an event. It is a practice. Victory is not a moment. It is a habit. And discipline is not a punishment. It is a promise to your future self that you will not abandon him. Keep that promise, and you cannot be defeated. You must stop thinking of discipline as restriction. It is not a cage. It is not the enemy of freedom. It is the foundation of strength. A wild horse runs fast, but it crashes. A trained horse runs far and arrives. That is the difference between chaos and command. Your mind, untrained, is like the wild horse. It moves, yes, but without direction. It burns, yes, but without target. You confuse motion for meaning. You mistake activity for advancement. But if your actions are not aligned with your strategy, you are simply decorating your downfall. Restraint is not weakness. It is mastery. To hold back when you could react, to delay gratification in favor of preparation, to remain silent when emotion begs you to speak, that is the sharpest form of power. Because it is not natural, it is chosen, and everything you choose consciously becomes a weapon in your favor. I have no interest in how many hours you work if your actions betray your focus. I have no concern for your talent if your discipline fractures under stress. The man who does little with precision achieves more than the one who does much with confusion. And so, simplify. Sharpen your life into fewer actions, fewer thoughts, fewer commitments, each one held to the highest standard. You do not need more information. You need cleaner execution. The battlefield is not won by the one with the most plans, but by the one who adapts with clarity and moves without hesitation. And you cannot move without hesitation unless you trust yourself, not emotionally, operationally. You must become a machine of exactness, a strategist of silence, a soldier who no longer questions the order because he has trained himself to follow through. If your inner voice is soft, strengthen it by acting on it. If it is unclear, clarify it by removing distractions. If it is hesitant, build its power by keeping promises in the smallest places. Do not aim first for glory. Aim first for obedience. You want to run a mile? Then master the first step. You want to lead others? Then master your own moods. You want to win a war? Then never leave your post, mentally, physically, or morally. Too many have abandoned their post while appearing present. They look focused, but their mind wanders. They speak of goals, but train with inconsistency. They wear the armor of commitment, but flee at the first doubt. You do not need armor, you need alignment. When your thoughts, words, and actions move as one, you are no longer human. You are force. You become inevitable, and inevitability terrifies the enemy. He cannot defeat a man who does not flinch. He cannot tempt a mind that cannot be bought. He cannot outlast a discipline that does not fade. This is not about being perfect. Perfection is an illusion, but precision is real, and precision can be built. You must become the kind of man whose smallest decision reflects the clearest purpose. Do not underestimate the power of the small. The small decisions compound. The small deviations expand. A small retreat, justified once, becomes a path of surrender. A single exception, made quietly, becomes a new rule, and your standards dissolve. Hold the line, even when it feels meaningless, even when no one sees, especially then, because war is a test of endurance, not just strength. The enemy does not care how hard you hit once. He waits to see if you can hit again, after failure, after fatigue, after silence. The ones who win are not the loudest. They are the last to quit. To endure, you must simplify. You must reduce the number of decisions you make in a day that are not aligned with the mission. You must design your life like a battlefield, with terrain you control, with barriers to weakness, with systems that protect your energy from distraction. The battlefield is not just your work. It is your phone, your meals, your calendar, your companions. Each one either sharpens your sword or dulls it. Every interaction is an input. Every environment is a weapon, for or against you. Every habit is a signal to your future. So audit your life with the severity of a commander preparing for war. Ask not what you feel like doing. Ask what strengthens your structure. You are not here to indulge in your preferences. You are here to become a fortress, immovable, deliberate, trained, one that holds under pressure, one that grows sharper through resistance, one that no longer needs external motivation because the internal standard has become absolute. And you do this not through inspiration, but through design. Make it easier to obey yourself than to betray yourself. Do not rely on willpower. Rely on formation. Place your weapons where they are needed. Place your time where it cannot be stolen. Guard your energy as if it were your last soldier. Because in war, sometimes it is. Fatigue kills clarity. Clutter kills decision. Too many open tabs in the mind lead to paralysis. Close the unnecessary, focus the essential. Strength is not in doing more. Strength is in doing less, with perfection. Let your days be boring. Let your meals be repeated. Let your routines be predictable. Because predictability in practice leads to unpredictability in battle. When you no longer debate your actions, you free up attention for precision. When you no longer negotiate with weakness, you become resistant to it. When your schedule is a reflection of your purpose, every moment becomes movement toward victory. And if you fail, which you will, then fail forward. But never lie. Never say you followed your plan when you didn't. Never dress up weakness as wisdom. Never call surrender a strategy. Honor your failure with honesty. And then return. Immediately. Without drama. Without story. Without delay. That is the return of a warrior. Emotion slows the pivot. Guilt delays the reset. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be loyal to yourself, your mission, your path. Even the strongest fall. But the ones who win return faster, sharper, colder, wiser, and above all, quieter. Because once you have fallen and risen without noise, you understand. You understand that victory is not in the speech, but in the silence that follows obedience. You understand that greatness is not in the declaration, but in the daily, unseen repetition of what others call boring. You understand that freedom is not in doing what you want, but in doing what must be done, without needing to be told. This is the truth, and the truth is sharp. So do not decorate it. Do not soften it. Do not escape it. You lost the war the moment you disobeyed yourself. And you will win the war, not when others believe in you, not when you feel powerful, not when you see results, but the very moment you return to yourself. Quietly, sharply, fully. The moment you return to yourself, truly return, the terrain shifts. The ground beneath your feet hardens. Your direction becomes straight again. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Strategy is not a document. It is a posture, a state of mind, a calm readiness that does not waver when plans fail, because all plans fail. That is the nature of contact with chaos. But the strategist does not collapse with the plan. He adapts with clarity. He does not mourn the change. He recalibrates and reasserts control. Quickly, without noise, without needing explanation. You are not in control of the storm. You are in control of your formation. And so you must ask, is your formation ready? Not just for attack, but for boredom, for repetition, for rejection, for slow progress, for long nights, for silence, for the weight of nothing changing while you keep showing up. That is the true battlefield, not resistance from others, but resistance from within. There will be no ceremony, no signal from the heavens, only you and the mirror. The quiet question, did you follow through? If the answer is no, then you lost something greater than a goal. You lost trust in your own leadership. You told your future self, I cannot be counted on. And that fracture, though invisible, weakens every step that follows. You rebuild by acting. Immediately. Without justification. Without story. You reclaim control by obeying your own clarity. This is how a commander returns after defeat, not by words, but by steps. The enemy expects you to fold. Confuse him with your stillness. Surprise him with your order. Terrify him with your return, because most do not return. Most fall once and never rise with the same sharpness. They blame. They delay. They adjust their goals downward so they no longer feel the sting of failure. But a warrior does not lower the mountain. He sharpens the tools. Let your failures refine you, not redefine you. You are not what you failed to do. You are what you choose to do next with exactness. There is no secret to victory. It is a daily refusal to betray yourself, over and over, in meals, in movement, in words, in sleep, in thoughts, in company, in choice. And in that refusal, you become someone no longer vulnerable to chance. You become consistent in a world that is chaotic. You become clear in a world that is fog. You become aligned when all others fracture, and that alignment radiates power. Others feel it before they understand it. They will call it presence. But it is only one thing, obedience, to something higher, not external, not mystical, but internal and exact. The voice you silenced before, the standard you lowered, the direction you once saw but turned from. That is your war, and the one who wins it becomes unstoppable. You need fewer goals, fewer intentions, more execution. Stop writing about the mission. Walk it. Stop declaring the plan. Live it. Stop posting your ambition. Prove it in silence. Every word you do not back with behavior is a leak in your armor. Eventually, the leaks drown the fortress. Let your words become rare. Let your promises become sacred. Let your actions carry the full weight of your discipline. Speak only what you will do. Do only what sharpens the mission. You do not need to be extreme. You need to be exact. Exact in your time. Exact in your standards. Exact in your correction of deviation. Because every deviation is a potential breach. Left unchecked, it becomes a habit. Left unnoticed, it becomes identity. And soon, you are no longer the commander. You are the noise. But the one who checks himself daily, who returns to formation hourly, who reviews his plan and tightens it, becomes immune to drift. That is how strategy becomes embodiment. Not by force, but by alignment. You wake with clarity. You move with structure. You correct with precision. You rest with confidence, not because the day was easy, but because you did not flee. And this is where peace is found, not in absence of battle, but in presence of obedience. You can be at war and still feel stillness if your actions match your command. You can be surrounded by chaos and still move calmly if your standard remains intact. The world can fall apart, and you can remain whole if your loyalty never leaves the mind that made the plan. But break that loyalty and everything unravels. You lost the war the moment you disobeyed yourself. You lost not because of the enemy's strength, but because of your hesitation. Not because you lacked knowledge, but because you ignored it. Not because life was unfair, but because you gave yourself permission to postpone the fight. But now you know. So what will you do? Continue explaining? Or return to execution? Continue performing? Or restore precision? Continue blaming? Or pick up the sword? You are not here to be saved. You are here to awaken. You are here to rise without celebration, to move without applause, to prepare while others sleep, to execute while others talk, to sharpen while others soften. Because war does not wait for motivation. It moves when it must, and you must move with it, with order, with force, with clarity, or be left behind. There are no spectators in war. You are either in command of your life or you are collateral. Choose. Return to your command. Speak your orders in the silence of your mind. Obey without delay, act without noise, and move like a blade through fog, cutting forward not because the path is clear, but because you are. Clarity is not given, it is carved. You do not find it in the world. You extract it from yourself, with discipline, with silence, with confrontation. The undisciplined wait for clarity to appear. The strategist knows it must be earned through removal of noise, of excess, of excuse. What remains, when all that is unnecessary is stripped away, is direction. Pure, sharp, silent direction. It does not scream. It does not beg to be followed. It simply waits, unmoved, to see whether you are loyal enough to hear it. Loyalty to that voice is everything. You may lie to others. You may lie to the world. But the battlefield of consequence does not lie back. It delivers only what was earned. And what you earned is determined not by what you hoped, not by what you intended, but by what you obeyed. So examine yourself like a general surveying damaged terrain. Look closely, without emotion. Find the cracks, Trace the failures not to the chaos around you, but to the disobedience within you. That one decision you knew was incorrect. That delay disguised as rest. That indulgence labeled as reward. That softness you allowed to enter your gate. You knew it then. You know it now. The body remembers. The mind remembers. Every betrayal of self leaves a residue, not in others, but in you. You do not become weak all at once. You weaken one small decision at a time, each one tolerated, excused, forgotten, until discipline is no longer a standard, but a memory. And when you look back, it is never a mystery why the war was lost. It is always clear. You left your post. You disobeyed your structure. You negotiated with delay. You ignored what you once knew, and the price was paid, not in that moment, but later, when it mattered most. That is how war works. The consequences do not arrive when the mistake is made. They arrive when it's too late to reverse it. But not today. Today you are here, and that means the post is still yours. The command can still be restored. The line can be redrawn, and the standard, broken as it may be, can be rebuilt. Stronger, stricter, sharper, because you are no longer guessing. You know what disobedience costs. So move. Return to your structure, not with guilt, but with exactness. Guilt is indulgence. Guilt is drama. Strategy requires none of it. Strategy requires only the correction. Immediate, total, quiet. Do not speak of starting over. Begin. Do not narrate your comeback. Walk it. Do not prove anything to anyone. Align your movement with your standard, and let time deliver the result. This is how warriors return, not through noise, not through spectacle, but through clean repetition. One day, one choice, one silent order at a time. And that order must come from within. You do not need external pressure. You need internal law. You do not need a mentor. You need self-command. You do not need motivation. You need rhythm, one that does not falter when unseen. That is when the world shifts, when your standard holds even when no one is watching, when no one is rewarding, when no one is validating. The enemy hopes you forget your law. Do not give him the satisfaction. Let him meet a soldier who no longer blinks, a strategist who no longer doubts, a mind that no longer leaks time or energy or focus, a commander who does not break formation, not even for comfort, not even for relief. You are not entitled to ease. You are responsible for readiness. Ease is the enemy's terrain. It softens your edge. It seduces you into stepping off the line. It whispers that you've earned a pause, that you've done enough, that you can return later. But war does not wait for your return. It moves while you sleep. It gains ground while you rest. And when you wake, it is already inside your gates. So rest strategically. Prepare deliberately. Recover only when it strengthens your next strike. Do not treat your time like the world's. Treat it like a weapon, sharpened by what you allow, dulled by what you excuse. A strategist does not live accidentally. He moves within the structure he designed. And if that structure weakens, he fortifies it. Not tomorrow, now. You are not your emotions. You are not your moods. You are the commander of your motion. And motion is sacred, so do not waste it on chatter. Do not waste it on comparison. Do not waste it on justification. Use it. Direct it. Sharpen it. Let every movement point to one aim, the full realignment of your action with your highest command. That is the only victory that matters, because all other victories are illusions if they were bought with self-betrayal. You may win the world and lose your word. You may achieve success and forfeit your standard. And in doing so, you build nothing worth defending. But obey yourself, fully, silently, fiercely, and you become the kind of force the enemy fears. Because you cannot be tempted. Because you cannot be rushed. Because you do not require approval to execute. That kind of man cannot be predicted. He cannot be broken. He cannot be pulled into battles that don't matter. He chooses his war, his time, his strike. He does not shout. He watches. He waits. And when he moves, it is already too late. This is the art of internal war. This is the strategy of self-command. This is the true meaning of victory. Not what you gain, but what you refuse to lose. Your law. The world changes. The enemies evolve. The terrain shifts. But your standard must remain unmoved. You must remain unmoved, because that stillness is not passivity. It is readiness. It is containment. It is full power under control. And nothing is more terrifying to chaos than a man who will not move until he decides. That is the man I train. That is the voice you silence when you disobey. But that voice is still there, waiting, steady, clear. Return to it. Not for comfort. For command. You do not need to be powerful to begin. You need only to obey the part of you that already knows. That quiet knowing, the one that sees without noise, that observes without reaction. It does not scream for your attention. It waits. It watches how long you will distract yourself with lesser voices. The world has taught you to chase the loudest call, but real direction whispers. It will not compete for your attention. You either rise to hear it, or you drown in the static. And if you cannot hear it, the problem is not volume. It is alignment. You have trained yourself to ignore your own wisdom. You have conditioned your will to delay. You have rewarded distraction, celebrated shortcuts, and forgiven yourself too quickly. So your voice, once sharp, now fades. Not because it is gone, but because you stopped obeying it. You made it optional, and in doing so, you declared war against your own command. When you delay execution, you signal to yourself that truth can wait. But truth does not wait. It watches. It observes how many times you walk away from it, and with each retreat, your authority within collapses. You cannot lead yourself when your orders have no consequence, so make your word final again. Do not make promises to feel good. Make them to build force. Speak less. And when you speak, make it law. The kind of law that does not bend under feeling, fatigue, or failure. Let your yes become a strike. Let your no become a shield. This is how you rebuild, not with speeches, not with emotion, but with certainty. A line drawn internally, a command given once, and followed without negotiation. You must remove the option to disobey, not from fear, from principle. Because obedience is not submission, it is alignment, and alignment is clarity in motion. A man in alignment does not chase strength, he becomes it. He does not seek force, he is already moving in it. Every step he takes is pointed, weighted, unmistakable. That kind of man is rare, and that is why he wins. Because the world is not lacking talent. It is lacking alignment, the ability to hold form under chaos, the strength to continue without audience, the will to act when the reward is invisible. But you must become that kind of man. One whose strategy is not seasonal, one whose system does not fracture when tested, one whose progress does not depend on applause, but on internal calibration. And you calibrate by correction, not once a month, not once a year, daily. You inspect the walls of your mind, you check the pulse of your purpose, you verify the integrity of your actions, quietly, constantly, without delay. This is not overthinking, it is reinforcement. Every general walks the perimeter. Every commander checks formation. You must do the same within yourself. Not because you doubt your power, but because you honor your edge. And your edge dulls without friction. So seek friction. Not chaos, friction. The tension between what is easy and what is right. The strain between your current form and your higher one. The resistance you feel when you are about to disobey. That is the gate. That is the moment of war. Win that moment, and you win the day, and days compound. You do not become disciplined in a single act. You become disciplined by refusing disobedience again and again until it becomes nature, until your instincts no longer debate, until your actions precede emotion. That is when you are no longer practicing war. You are living it. Not against others, not for conquest, but as posture, as principle, as the frame within which all motion flows. And that frame must be unbreakable. You can change tactics, you can adjust plans, but the frame, the foundation of how you think, how you act, how you obey, must not move. Otherwise, you become a wanderer in your own life, forever reacting, forever compromising, forever beginning again. But when the frame is solid, your life becomes architecture. Every act a brick, every thought a beam, every habit a wall. And soon, you are no longer building a shelter, you are building a fortress. Not to hide, to operate from. And when you operate from a fortress, you do not rush, you do not chase, you do not flinch. You respond with precision, you execute with power, you endure with stillness. And no enemy, no rejection, no failure, no temptation can breach you. Because your command is not external, it is internal. An internal command is the one weapon that cannot be taken. So build it. Every day you choose to obey yourself, even in the smallest task, you harden your walls. You deepen your roots. You send a signal to your future self. I can be trusted. And trust, once built within, becomes unshakable. You no longer hesitate, because you know you will follow through. You no longer need discipline. You are discipline. This is where victory begins to feel inevitable. Not because life is easy, but because your posture is immovable. You no longer negotiate with weakness. You no longer ask if you feel like moving. You move because you said you would. And in that act, you sever the part of you that waited for the world to push you. You become self-contained, self-commanding. This is how power feels. Not loud, not visible, not theatrical, but still and sharp and utterly unshakable. Others will not see your war. They will not understand your silence. They will ask why you rise early, why you leave early, why you eat the same meal, why you move the same way, why you say no so often. Let them ask. Do not explain your structure to those who worship chaos. Do not defend your obedience to those who chase emotion. Let your results speak. Let your calm unsettle them. Let your precision confuse their noise. A man at war with himself must speak often, must prove often, must shout. A man at peace with his discipline speaks rarely, because his movement already answers everything. So speak less. Move with more weight. Make every action a confirmation of your standard. And when you fall, as every warrior does, do not panic. Do not spiral. Do not soften the law to justify the failure. Return, not with shame, not with delay, with swiftness, with the same precision you once abandoned. That is the pivot point between the defeated and the disciplined. One breaks, the other returns, quietly, fully, without apology. You are not obligated to be perfect, but you are required to return. And if you build the skill of returning, not just sometimes, but always, then you become invincible. Because no failure holds you. No drift consumes you. You cut through delay with realignment. not once, but daily, as a system, as a code, as the deepest loyalty you possess. You do not need to tell the world you're back. You just begin the next repetition. You just strike the next hour with clarity. You just hold the line, again. And soon, the world will wonder how you became untouchable. But it was never a moment. It was a million quiet acts of obedience to yourself, while no one watched. That is how legacies are forged. Not in noise, but in precision. Not in performance, but in posture. Not in motivation, but in structure. And the one who builds that structure cannot be shaken by trend, by failure, by distraction, because his foundation was never external. He does not need to be the best. He only needs to be aligned, and alignment, when held long enough, surpasses brilliance, because brilliance burns out without direction, but direction, obeyed long enough, becomes destiny. And your destiny is not written in words. It is written in choices, in systems, in hours, in how many times you refuse to disobey the one voice that is never wrong, the one you heard before you started doubting, before you started stalling, before you started asking the world for permission. That voice, that law, is still waiting. And it will not beg for your loyalty. It will not negotiate with your mood. It will not adjust to your excuses. It will sit calm, unwavering, watching what you choose. And every time you disobey it, you lose the war before it begins. But every time you obey, fully, precisely, completely, you return to the throne. Not over others, over yourself. And that is the only throne that cannot be taken. Do not look for closure in the outside world. The world does not close your battles. It only reflects whether or not you closed them yourself. The final war is never declared on paper. It is declared in the silence of your next decision. No one will see it happen. No ceremony will mark the return. But in the stillness of your mind, when the noise settles, you will feel it. The line reformed, the gate resealed, the command restored. Not because you spoke it, because you lived it. And when you live it, everything changes. Time begins to bend. The wasted hours vanish. The drag of hesitation fades. The old indulgences no longer tempt. You no longer ask what others are doing. You no longer wonder what comes next. You already know. You are already moving. The world responds differently to a man in alignment. Not because of charisma, not because of charm, because he does not flinch, and the one who does not flinch cannot be owned. You do not need to rise quickly. You need to rise correctly. And correct does not mean perfect. It means obedient to your code. It means willing to correct course, not out of panic, but out of principle. It means moving like water, but striking like iron. This is the quiet force of one who no longer betrays himself. He does not need forgiveness. He does not need pity. He does not need applause. He needs only one thing, the next moment, executed with total alignment. When that becomes your rhythm, you do not need hope. You do not need hype. You do not even need belief. You move because the movement is correct. And in that movement, belief returns. Confidence returns. Victory returns. But you do not chase any of it. You simply obey. The world will tempt you with shortcuts again, with noise again, with softness again. You will be invited to slip, to stall, to question your path. And you will hear again that small voice, the one that asks, "Just this once?" And in that moment, remember this. You lost the war the last time you said yes, so this time, you do not speak. You do not hesitate. You do not reason. You simply return to your law. You do not need to feel ready. You do not need to feel strong. You only need to obey. And in that act, done without ceremony, done without reward, you rise. Not loudly, not visibly, but fully. That is the return of the warrior. That is how the war is won. Not all at once. Not in one final act. But in every moment, you refuse to betray the command within. You are not here to be seen. You are not here to be celebrated. You are here to be aligned, to be still, to be sharp, to be exact. And in that exactness, practiced quietly, repeated endlessly, you become what war cannot touch. You become sovereign. You become strategy. You become untouchable, because you no longer disobey yourself. And that alone is victory.